Shabbat Shalom. So I want to first of all acknowledge again for those of you who are on the board, which is actually not most of you. I shared these thoughts in a somewhat different format on Monday night at the board meeting. So in this Parashat, BeShalach, our ancestors leave Egypt at the very beginning of the Parashat. And one of the things that struck me as I was preparing the reading for this morning is they took Joseph's bones with them. Right? And it occurs to me that maybe there's a symbolism there, right? That when they leave Egypt, they want to be done, right? And they don't want to leave anything behind, including Joseph's bones, right? Because if Joseph's bones stay in Egypt, people will want to visit his grave, right? And we don't want to go back to Egypt. We want to be done, right? And that's what they think, right? They leave Egypt, they're done. The Egypt saga is over. Aha. It's not, right? Pharaoh has a change of heart, and he decides to pursue them, and they get to the shores of the Red Sea, and they can't go forward, or at least they believe that they can't, right? And so, you know, they're frustrated, they're scared, they're angry, they turn on Moses, right? Moses prays, God says prayer is very nice, action is better, right? Tell them to go forward, and then we have this midrash, a famous character in the midrash, but it's pure midrash, it is not in the text, right? Nachshon ben Aminadab, right? What does he do? He starts walking into the sea. And when God sees that Nachshon has taken that step, God causes the sea to split, right? But what have our people learned? That what they anticipated to be a single event was actually the beginning of a process, right? We learn a lot of things from the Torah, but one of the things that we often fail to learn is that transition is not an event, it's a process. Right? Our ancestors did not go overnight from Egypt to the Promised Land. Right? It took them 40 years. 40 years struggle and strife, hope, despair, and nostalgia. Right? For in Egypt, which was so much nicer in retrospect than it ever was in reality. Right? I mean, pay attention to what they're going to say over the course of the whole rest of the Torah, whenever they turn on Egypt. Oh, we had such nice food in Egypt. Right? It was, what? Chinam, for free, right? We didn't have to pay for it. It's true. Slaves don't pay for their food. Not with money, right? Egypt was great, and now we're here in this crummy desert, right? So Egypt, it wasn't so great, right? But nostalgia is very powerful, right? But the lesson of the 40 years in the desert, particularly in American society, is deeply countercultural. We live in a society that expects results now, right? But many an artist can tell you it takes years of hard work to become an overnight success, right? The expert on transition was an author and psychologist, and I just love his name, right? Because it is like the most appropriate name for a person who's an expert in transition. His name was William Bridges, okay? And he taught that a successful transition has 3 periods. The ending, letting go of the past, the neutral zone, where the end of the old era is in sight, but the new era has not yet started, and a new beginning, right? And it's totally counterintuitive, right? Because something has a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? But Bridges says that a transition has an end, a middle, and a beginning, right? The transition starts with an end. People let go of their old reality and their old identity. And if people can't make a real ending, they won't be able to make a successful beginning. And after the ending, we have the second phase of transition, the neutral zone. The neutral zone is a time and a state of being in which the old behaviors and attitudes die out, and people often go dormant for a while as they prepare to move in a new direction. It's a dangerous time for organizations, but it's also the best time when innovations and experiments have a chance of succeeding. And only after going through each of these first 2 phases can people deal successfully with the third phase. Beginning over again, new energy, new sense of purpose, new outlook, and new image of themselves, right? And if you try to get people to make a new beginning without going through the first 2 phases, the transition is going to fail, right? So, question, Kehilat Shalom, which phase are we in right now?
Transition.
No, transition is the whole process.
The middle.
The middle, right? The neutral zone. We're in the neutral zone, right? The ending is in sight, but it hasn't happened yet, right? The new beginning, also in sight, but unclear, and we're not there yet, right? We're in the neutral zone. Yeah?
I've always learned, because I've taken several courses in this and worked in it,
Sure.
is that it's important right now to identify what are the things we want to keep. What is essential, like having a kosher kitchen, having our wall hangings, things like that, identify where we're going, what we're going to keep to move forward. And I think that's kind of where we are right now. We know we've already taken that big step with putting like the foot in the water and saying, we're doing it. And then we're going to go through, and here we are on the other side of the sea after it parted, and now we're saying, okay, what did we have that we really liked and what we want to have in the future?
What are the bones of Joseph?
Yes.
Right? What are our bones of Joseph?
Yes, what is it?
Right? No, I mean, that's great. I mean, that's a very, very helpful way of looking at it, right? Because the point, and this is what Bridges says, okay? I mean, the Torah is strongest, right, when we look at a story and we ask ourselves, who am I in this story? And where am I in this story? Right? And so if you look at this story, right, everybody asks, am I Moses? Am I the Jews fetching at Moses? Am I Nachshon? Am I Pharaoh? Right? I mean, who am I in this story? And what does this story teach me about my contemporary reality? Right? And it's not about, right? And as I said, right, what we stand when we read Shirat Hayam, right? And next week we'll stand when we read the revelation at Sinai. Why? Because when we read it, we relive it, we experience it, right? So, who am I in this story, right? And I think, to me, the answer is we will succeed if we're all Nachshonim, right? We all have to be Nachshon, right? To take that step forward into the scary reality, right? Knowing that we can't go back. We can't go back. And we'll have nostalgia, right? Oh, we'll have nostalgia, but we can't go back. So we can either fetch or go forward, right? That's
Rabbi,
that used to be where friends become family. Now our new slogan should be fetch or go forward. Right?
Rabbi, I just wanted to add that the other three parties that are mentioned in the Midrash basically were supposed to, they expressed their opinion, but the message that you're saying is basically they're supposed to now support the going forward opinion and give that support, because without their support they'll still remain behind, and everything will be stuck, and we won't be able to continue. So
Right, exactly. So if we're not shown, we're the people who followed him into the sea, right? Yeah.
I heard at a Devor Torah from Women's League program earlier in the week that it was more important for the women to bring the timbrels out than to get the bread in the oven in time for it to be leavened.
Right. I mean, that's important too, right? I mean, like, who needs timbrels, right? I mean, first of all, who knows what timbrels are, right? But tambourines, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're right. What do you need tambourines? Right, but they brought the tambourines because they had faith that there would be deliverance, right? Exactly. So that's exactly right. And that's what we have, right? But faith got to be coupled with action, right? And that's right. So we have faith. We have faith, and the action is to bring the tambourines.
Yeah.
Right? So exactly, right? Faith and action. Faith and action. Fetch or go forward. Right? And so Bridges says Moses, and I have this, I can share, I think I have it as a PDF, I can share it with you, right? Moses is a successful transition leader, right? Because he takes them out of Egypt right? And he leads them in the desert for the 40 years, and then he turns it over to Joshua, right? But the transition is successful because it is a transition, right? And so here's how Bridges actually concludes his article about Moses as a transition leader. He says, in the years since World War II, so many things have needed fixing that we have celebrated the role of change agent. Only recently, with the round of mergers, downsizings, and restructurings, have we begun to discover that change itself can be a problem, and that we need leaders who not only create change, but manage transition. Right? That is why Moses is such a valuable example. Okay, and I have to say that that's what we're trying to do, right? But it's difficult because we're building the plane as it's flying, right? I mean, it's not enough to sell the building, right? We got to figure out what we're going to look like once the building is sold, right? So we're moving, and and that's Lori's letter that went out the other day, right? Talking about the sale process, but also talking about the process of finding a new location. Because if you just do the one, you're stuck in the desert, right? So there are two things going on at the same time, and it's not easy. It's not easy, but it's what we have to do, right? Create change and manage transition. That is why Moses is such a valuable example. He could not only break the bondage of the past, convey the vision of a future, but also get the people through the wilderness that always comes between where we are and where we want to be. Right? The wilderness that always comes between where we are and where we want to be. Shabbat Shalom. Continue with the Kaddish before Musaf and the Musaf service, page 155 in the Shabbat Siddur, 428 in the